if you don't have the ability to generate new revenue, any work that you do on your expenses will ultimately not matter. You will go out of business. You need the ability to generate new revenue first. Your entire business depends on it. Expenses are secondary, because if you don't generate revenue, it doesn't matter what your expenses are, you're going out of business eventually.
I can see the whole wide world with these two eyes, and I can be whoever I wanna be, 'cause it's my life.
Hi, thanks for joining us for another episode of Ask Spurrell CPA. Today, Edmonton Business Coach, we're talking about minimizing expenses as not the answer. Again, on Edmonton Business Coach, we're talking how minimizing expenses is not the answer. I have May here with me from the firm. May, are you seeing that our clients who spend the least, their expenses the least, are those the ones that are making the most money?
Yes and no. There's
Yeah.
some that do, and then there's some that they spend, but then they don't make money. So
Yeah. How do those big businesses look compared to the small business? Are they spending a lot more on everything altogether?
no, the major difference, and
Yeah.
it's based on, like you said, it's based on how they're spending and the benefits of what they're spending on versus what they need versus what they want, kind of thing.
Yeah. So the quote that we have here today is a Zig Ziglar quote, and he says, "It is unwise to pay too little. When you pay too much, you lose a little money. That is all. When you pay too little, you sometimes lose everything because the thing you bought was incapable of doing what it was bought to do. The common law of business balance prohibits paying too little and getting a lot." And the statistic that we have here, 50% of all Canadian small businesses will go out of business in the first 5 years, and 29% of these failed business owners will list running out of cash as one of the primary reasons for their failure, making running out of cash the second most common reason for business failure. And the story that we have here, business owners, they're unaware of the risk of running out of cash, and they're aware of running out of the risk of running out of cash, and they end up running their business with an employee mindset that is ineffective in business. And May, what are the questions you think these business owners should be asking?
They should ask, if you can't generate new revenue, will expenses even matter?
So that's the crux, is if you don't have the ability to generate new revenue, to replace clients and grow clients as they, or generate new clients. If you don't have the ability to generate new revenue, any work that you do on your expenses will ultimately not matter. You will go out of business. You need the ability to generate new revenue first. Your entire business depends on it. Expenses are secondary, because if you don't generate revenue, it doesn't matter what your expenses are, you're going out of business eventually.
Will revenue generating activities suffer if you spend too much time on expenses?
There you go. So we established the fact that if you can't grow revenue, if you can't make sales, ultimately your business will fail regardless of your expense levels. So if you spend too much time on your expenses, you won't have enough time to spend on revenue generating activities. And if you don't have enough time to spend on them, they're not going to function well.
Why does the employee mindset we grow up with make this difficult to grasp?
It's difficult to grasp because the employee mindset we grew up with is we trade time for money, and we go to work and we make relatively set amount. Some people are completely fixed in terms of hours and the hourly rate or the salary they're drawing. Some people have a bit of a commission maybe that they're getting. But for the most part, what you're going to make in your job is relatively fixed within a certain level. But in business, it's the complete opposite. How much you're going to generate in revenue is completely dependent on you and what you do. So it's a completely different game altogether, where our goal is we have to generate more revenue, because when we're an employee, there's a certain amount of revenue. It's guaranteed, but it's also fixed. And in business, the revenue is never guaranteed, and it's not fixed at all. It can be infinite or nothing. So we can't have that same employee mindset where the revenue is guaranteed, and our job as an employee is simply to minimize expenses, increase the level of savings, and pay down debt, where in business it can be a little bit different.
And why is 168 the most important number in a business?
So 168 is always the number of hours in a week, and every business owner, whether they have $1 to start their business or $1 million to start their business, they all only have 168 hours in the week. So how much of that time are you going to allocate to revenue generating activities versus how much of that time are you going to allocate to optimizing your expenses? Ultimately, 168 hours is going to be the main limiter on both.
Are your direct costs generally worthy of significant time?
Yeah, so generally, like your direct costs, those are worthy. We put the direct cost right at the top of the financial statement. So we have our revenue first, and then we deduct the direct costs to get to the gross margin. Those are, the types of expenses where if you're investing some time to optimize those expenses, it's probably going to have a pretty significant payback for you, because if you can change your direct cost even by a few percentage points here or there, it's going to make a rather large impact on the bottom line. If you can keep 40% of every project instead of 30% of every project, that's a really significant number, and one that is worthy of time.
Are the costs associated with administrative staff likely significant?
Yeah, usually after we get through those direct costs, the other one that's likely significant is the cost of any administrative staff. Because those staffing costs in most businesses are one of the most significant expenses. So if you can spend some time on optimizing it, that's probably time well spent. So long as you're not spending too much time on that you don't want to be the one, you don't want to fire the person at the front desk, so you're doing all the scanning and you can no longer do your revenue generating activities anymore. But your costs of your administrative staff are likely significant in your business and are worthy of some of your time.
Are the costs associated with your physical location likely significant?
Yeah, so once you get locked into that physical location, you're likely stuck with it. Whether you buy it or whether you lease it, you're probably there for a considerable amount of time, and you're probably going to spend some money to get out of it once you do want to get out of it. So spending some time in getting the right physical location, because that rental payment or that mortgage payment on the space is likely going to be a significant number in your business. So you probably do want to spend some of your valuable time, and your most valuable resource is time. So you want to spend some of your 168 hours a week. If you are thinking of getting into a new location or renewing a lease, that's certainly worthy of some of your time.
Should you likely restrict the time you spend on optimizing other overhead costs?
Yeah, it's not that you're not going to spend time on optimizing your other overhead costs, but you have to realize once you get through revenue, your main goal is you have to generate new revenue. If you can't generate new revenue, your business will fail. It's just a matter of time, regardless of what you can do on the expenses. And you're going to spend some time to make sure your direct costs of sales are good, so your gross profit margin works out well. You have an admin staff that's those costs are in line, and you have the cost of your physical location, whether that's rent or interest on long-term debt, that works out well. But the rest of your overhead costs, how much the phones cost and what you're paying on insurance, and it can pay back, but it's minimal. It is very minimal. So ideally you don't want to spend no time on it, but it's not the answer. Minimizing these costs are not going to be the reason why your business succeeds or fails. Minimizing these costs are simply going to be, they're going to make a successful business a little bit more successful, or a failing business a little bit more of a failure. But they're not going to be the difference between success and failure in most businesses, because they're just not all that significant.
Why is the simplicity of these other overhead costs often grab out attention?
Yeah, so although they're not that significant, when you start to look at them, they will grab our attention, because business is complicated. When you come with a problem of, I need to acquire more customers and have a constant stream of new customers, that is a big, scary task. And someone says, hey, can you get my phone bill from $85 a month to $80 a month? They know they're on the phone with TELUS or Rogers, and they're switching phone lines and talking about packages, and it's 2, 3, 4, 5 hours later, they got their $85 a month phone bill down to $80, but meanwhile, they didn't spend any time on generating new business for that month, and it's going to fail. I love to tell people it doesn't matter. TELUS could pay you to use the phone. If you're not generating enough revenue, your business is still going to fail. But they grab our attention because they're simple. We want to solve the problem. The problem is we don't have enough profit at the end of the day, and this is a very solvable issue, and we're gravitated to the easy problems, and we don't want to eat the frog. You got to eat the frog first thing in the morning, and get the hard task knocked out. Make sure we're doing the revenue generating activities, our cost of sales in line. Is our admin costs, staffing costs in line? Is the cost of our physical space under control? After that, spend more time on generating revenue generating activities is probably going to have a bigger payback than spending hours and hours in minimizing those other overhead costs. Even though they're simple, they're easy to fix, they're not going to be the difference between success and failure.
Do successful companies try to minimize advertising costs?
So, and then there's advertising costs, which stands out as an anomaly altogether. And people think, well, I want to cut costs. I want to cut costs. We grew up with that employee mindset that the less we spend, the more we make. But it's been proven, time and time again. You look at successful companies versus unsuccessful companies, or the leading brands versus the average brands. Why does Nike outsell Puma? It's because they spend a bigger percentage of their revenue year after year after year, and they do it in perpetuity. So the companies that are generally outperforming, in most businesses, we see like a 2% average what people are spending. If you take the overall revenue times it by 2%, a lot of industries that'll work out to what the average marketing budget is. But the leaders, conversely, they're usually spending 5% of their overall revenue on marketing. So they're always spending more on marketing. They're not minimizing expenses on marketing. They're actually trying to spend double, more than double what their competition does on marketing. So, if you want to be successful, there's a certain, again, you're focusing all your time on revenue generating activities. You're spending, any of your expense optimization time, most of your expense optimization time on the more significant items, and restricting, sucking your time away on the other overhead items and maybe delegating that to someone else. But in terms of advertising, you're trying to find a way to outspend your competition on advertising, because that's one of the keys to success. So I think that's what we have here today. Thanks so much for tuning in. We enjoy any comments that you put below so we can respond back and use your feedback for future videos. And please hit the like and subscribe button so we continue to deliver you tips on how to beat the odds at business. Thanks very much.